So my name's Amy. I am a conservator and I work for Fine Art Restoration Company. I'm based here in London. We have a wonderful custom studio based up in Carlisle in Cumbria. I'm an objects conservator by training, but after I graduated, I spent a number of years working for the State Library of New South Wales. So I had fabulous exposure to the conservation of paper and books. I specialise in conservation of objects, but I also have the opportunity to work on incredible prints and paper pieces here as well.
Could you kind of walk us through the process for those of us who don't know when a print comes in severely damaged? Like, what is the process from start to finish? How does that work?
So when pieces come to Fine Art Restoration Company, usually we receive an initial inquiry from the client, and they will usually send through some photographs to us of a piece that may have unfortunately been damaged. These help us get a sense of what sort of issues have occurred, and we can start by formulating some plans and recommendations to help these people out with their artwork. Whenever a piece arrives to us, we comprehensively document it and assess its condition. We see, unfortunately, lots of different types of damage. This can range from light exposure fading through to, say, a frame may have been dropped and the glass is broken and might have perforated the print. But even things like, being in the UK, it's a rainy place. Humidity and water can affect paper prints as well. So we see cockling from exposure to humidity. We see staining from leaks and water ingress. If works go ahead, it can be really diverse. It can be surface cleaning, it can be humidification and flattening, repairing of tears. The most amazing thing that our paper conservator can do is he can actually wash prints, but it's always done with the utmost care. So before any type of washing takes place, the piece is very carefully tested to determine the solubility of the inks or the paint that might be on the piece. And only once that testing has been done do we confirm that it's suitable for washing. And at that point, it's submerged into a bath of pH adjusted water. So again, the sort of chemistry is all done to make sure it's all protected as well as it can be. But the process is amazing, and it really works to remove those stains and to remove acidic compounds as well. So it's a valuable treatment to be able to do, but always done with the utmost care.
Always extremely careful. I'm still picturing it in my mind of a piece of paper being submerged in water, and then afterwards, what happens afterwards? It just hangs to dry.
I promise we don't pin it up with pegs, no. So it's always supported on another piece of a webbed paper.
Okay.
So it's always fully supported in and out of the bath. We use that to carry it and to make sure no deformations occur during this process. Because of course, when a piece of paper goes into water, it becomes soft, it becomes pliable, flexible. So there's always risk at that point. So it's always fully supported on another piece of fabric, and that can be used to put it into the bath, to remove it from the bath, and then we can press it really flat. So it's pressed in between layers of blotter paper and felts, and it can really smooth out those deformations.
Has there ever been some sort of horror story, I guess, or not necessarily horror story, but where the outcome came out differently than expected?
Thankfully, I have not encountered this, and as far as I'm aware, my colleague
I thought you were going to say that.
So the whole purpose of our assessment and testing leading up to any of these intervented processes is to ensure that these things don't happen.
Right.
So all of the testing that we carry out in advance is to make sure that we are 100% sure that the piece can withstand this kind of treatment. So it's never the case that a piece is sort of just dumped willy-nilly into a bath. It's always really thoroughly tested beforehand. There are sometimes also limitations with the extent to which the treatment might be successful, and we are usually able to determine that in advance and explain that to the client. Often, a lot of our clients might not have had direct interaction with conservation and restoration previously. Usually they come to us when something unfortunate has happened. So for them, it's a chance to learn about what we do and for us to sort of work with them, educate them, and to manage their expectations as well. So we are always very upfront and clear when we communicate, what types of treatments we'll be doing and, the outcome that we predict from these treatments. And it's a chance for us to give the client this information and help them with their decision making. It's our job to inform our clients, with all the information that we have and to pass that over to them, because these artworks are very valuable, also often very sentimental pieces too. So it helps them, sort of process what has happened, helps them understand what kind of work will be done to it. And when there are potential limitations with a treatment, this also helps the client through conversations with perhaps their insurer.
Okay.
Often pieces like this will be covered under a client's insurance policy, and that helps discussions further down the line in terms of coverage and those sorts of things.
So you mentioned you work on a lot of Banksys. Let's talk about Banksys.
We see Banksy's artworks all the time here at Fine Art Restoration Company, which is always a joy. And what we really appreciate is the diversity of the materials. It really speaks to his practice and to his changing approaches over time. So as you mentioned, the prints and their substrates do vary considerably from more sort of traditional print papers that we are used to seeing for art prints, through to more commonly available papers that may not always be used in an art print context. So it's really good to be aware of the types of papers that the prints are on, as this can contribute to potential degradation processes or preservation. Fine art paper prints, generally it's a very high quality paper and will fare better over time. But for papers that, sort of more commonly available papers, these may have, just inherently through the processes of production, have acidic compounds within them.
Right.
So this necessitates further protection for their sort of ongoing preservation. This can involve framing under UV filtering glass, which reduces sun damage and reduces sort of emissions of these acidic compounds over time. So by being aware of the types of paper that the print is on, sort of arms you with the knowledge to better protect it into the future. Sometimes artists aren't always necessarily aware of the benefits of using a high quality paper.
Yeah.
They're using the materials that are available to them at the time and what fits with their practice. I think with the way the art print market is moving, I think we're definitely seeing greater awareness of the types of papers that are being used. And I would say that there definitely is a move towards use of higher quality papers over time. And I think that is directly, reflective of the kind of importance of the print market nowadays. I think artists are definitely aware of the value of this market and prioritizing the use of higher quality materials. But I mean, it depends on the practice. We see, like, for example, collage artists may embellish prints with, cutouts and pieces of different types of paper. So it still is really variable and diverse, but I would say generally there's a trend towards focusing on higher quality materials for sure. Recently, we've had a few fabulous artworks come through the studio. We had one of Andy Warhol's Queen Elizabeth. Lizzie looked beautiful.
Amazing. Good.
This was actually a really lovely case of a print arriving to us in immaculate condition.
Really?
So, it was a real treat to see for someone. We're usually used to seeing prints that have come in with something that has happened to them. But in this case, they were looking to have the piece condition checked and reframed, so we were able to help them with that. She arrived in the most immaculate folder to keep her beautifully flat. She had a beautiful acid-free glassine covering, sandwiched between beautiful thick boards. It was just the most impeccable example of how to transport a print and keep it stunningly flat.
How do you deal, or is it an issue if a fake comes in and someone wants this restored and it's a fake, or if they're pretending it's an original, or how do you deal with that?
This is a really interesting question, and It's something we do get inquiries about from time to time, but when we approach things from a conservation point of view, we endeavour to treat all materials with the same respect. Whether this is an original, whether it is something that's been made by someone, we endeavour to take the same approach, same respectful approach with all pieces. What we can do is using our background, we can, up close observe these pieces and provide the information that we see during these observations. So we can perhaps work with a client to give them information about the materials, perhaps the method that it has been produced, and we can give this back to them perhaps if they're maybe unsure if it's an original or a fake.
Are you ever in contact with the artist? Is there ever a concern of repairing anything beyond the artist's intent?
This is absolutely something that we do deal with on a regular basis, and plays heavily into our ethical approach as well. So, for example, my colleagues might work on paintings where the artist is still living. These paintings may have been damaged in a way that it requires retouching to reintegrate that damage. In cases where we are aware that the artist is still living, we will endeavour to reach out to them or their representatives just to make sure that our approach is in line with their artistic practice. In some cases, artists prefer to undertake repairs themselves. In other cases, they're happy to sort of review our recommendations and kind of give the go-ahead there. But in cases where we are aware that the artist is living, we always endeavour to reach out to them, just to make sure that we're on the right path and that they're comfortable with our approaches as well.
Sure. Is there a specific work that you would love to work on?
Oh my gosh, that I would love to work on.
Yeah, what would be your dream restoration project?
Oh my goodness. I probably have a few, to be honest, but I've been quite lucky in that I've had to actually be involved with quite a few of my dream pieces already, which has been an absolute treat. So for me, from an objects conservation perspective, I have a background in archaeology, so I've always been fascinated with ancient objects. We recently had some beautiful ancient Egyptian bronze statues in the studio that I had the pleasure of handling. It's always incredible when you get to hold pieces that are thousands of years old and think about where they've come from, how did they get here, who else has held them previously as well. And just being able to know that you can preserve them to continue their journey on into the future. For me, as someone who specialises in a lot of ceramics, I had the chance recently to work on a piece by a Chinese artist called Li Hong. It was a super fun piece, so made in a traditional method with porcelain. It was in the shape of the McDonald's arches. It's just such a fun play on,
I love it.
Traditional methods while also commenting on, the influx of capitalist influences into China as well. And I've worked on some of his pieces back in Australia as well, so it was a lovely kind of full circle moment. But in terms of paper pieces, look, Banksy's at the moment, they're so popular. They're so much in the public eye as well. We see a lot of these images on media, on the news, on social media. So to actually see one in front of you, and up close and personal, it's always an absolute treat.
I know, it's such a privilege. I mean, Banksy's in particular, they're so tradable. They still circulate in the art market. People want them. It's kind of like and he's a relatively new artist, so to speak. So it's kind of crazy to imagine, the art market before these prints specifically hit the auction block. So
we had 2 of his little white canvases with the girl with the balloon on them, and these had suffered, unfortunately, they'd been exposed to a leak in the client's home, so there was lots of tide lines and stainings down the bottom of the canvas. And from a sort of insurance coverage and also from a market resale perspective, this incident had significantly impacted the overall value of the artwork. And the client was devastated. She loved these pieces, but also they were an investment.
Yeah, a large asset. Yeah,
absolutely. And so one of my paintings conservator colleagues, was able to formulate this incredible plan whereby she took the canvases off their stretchers and was able to use specialist gels to pull out the staining from the bottom of the canvas. And the befores and afters were amazing.
Oh my
It had gone from this stark white canvas with all this yellow staining down the bottom to looking brand new, which was amazing. Of course, people love these pieces, but they're definitely also assets as well. So if we can help protect that, we're super stoked.
Yeah, amazing. Have you ever been asked to repair a signature? Is that a common practice?
We do get inquiries about this every now and then. I'll reference a painting if that's okay.
Yes.
But it's definitely applicable across the board in terms of artworks. We did have a painting come into the studio where the signature really wasn't very legible. Even though we're able to use certain techniques to try and read that, maybe say UV or infrared or something like that, we can use it to sort of gain greater clarification around what a signature might have been. There was still uncertainty. There wasn't quite enough of it remaining for us to determine fully what it is. But the client still did want us to sort of retouch that in so it was legible, and we had to go back to them and explain, look, we can't determine what this signature was, and also ethically it's not good practice to sort of try and reinstate something that either wasn't there or might not have been truthful. So signatures are a difficult sort of area to navigate, but from an ethical point of view, if something has been disrupted, we generally will try and preserve it as it is, but we won't try and put something back there that wasn't done by the artist.
Of course.
So we're conscious that it plays heavily into authenticity and value as well. We're not the artists, we're just here to preserve what the artist has left.
Fascinating. Cool. Well, thank you so much. That was everything is so